Hello, everybody. I am Baron Baptiste. Welcome to Disrupting the Drift. This is where we disrupt the conspiracy for mediocrity in the default humanity. People are drifting along in life. So, our intent here is to have conversations that disrupt that flow, that drift that just keeps you nothing changing, staying in the sea of sameness. Life is about adventure. Life is about taking on challenges, taking on adversity, taking on things. And when I say taking on, maybe better said is just letting things roll off you, that you flow, you move, breathe, have your being from your center. And the conversations here are intended to uplift you, me, we. And one request we have is share the show. The way we grow the show here is through you sharing the show. And many of you have been sharing the show. So we appreciate you for that. It supports us. And I say it supports you and empowering others, bringing others to life around you and in your world and paying it forward. So please share the show, subscribe if you have not. We post once or twice a week on YouTube. If you go to, I just started a new YouTube channel. I think I have 30 or 40 followers, subscribers. So please subscribe. It's Baron Baptiste Podcast. So if you go to Baron Baptiste Podcast on YouTube, you could get these in real color. And if you like the visual aspect, as I do, I like watching things as much as listening. That's me though. So David Masters, how you doing, buddy?
Always better when I'm with you, buddy.
It's good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good, good. One other thing, send questions to disrupting the drift at baronbaptiste.com. Disrupting the drift at baronbaptiste.com. We appreciate hearing from you. You could send comments, you could send concerns. And really, your feedback helps us grow and what works, what doesn't. That's great. But your questions, I have found so much joy in getting to respond to your questions on the show here because it's an interaction. It's we're interacting with you, and we put it in such we respond to your questions in such a way that it not only gives you what you're looking for, maybe some new answers, but also others who are dealing with similar or like situations. We're all in the same boat, but maybe it takes on different forms, different shapes, different colors. But in a way, we're all dealing with similar things in the world. So, David, what's happening, my friend?
Many interesting challenges every day,
Yeah,
all opportunities to do either the right thing or the wrong thing. So that's
yeah,
that's where we're going with this show today. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And we're living in interesting times right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the world is troubled, and then the question it's a question I have for myself every day is where am I putting my attention? Am I focused on the troubles or am I focused on moving life forward? And not to put on blinders and stick my head into the sand and not be aware of what's happening in the world, but actually being awake and aware, but also clear on where it is I'm going or where I'm being pulled to go by my creator, by my conscience, by my intuition. So we have a question. Should we dive in?
Let's dive.
Yeah, it's good. And it similar theming on these questions. So it's interesting to me how there's a theme happening in the world. And I think these questions we're receiving reflect it. But here you go. People around me are being attacked and torn down by people who seem to be committed to tearing others down. I've been living in fear that it could happen to me. I don't want this kind of fear energy driving my decisions, actions, and life. I just want to be free to be myself without needing to hide or be agreeable with others in order to avoid conflict. I'm wondering if you've had to deal with this kind of energy and have any thoughts on how I can best deal with this kind of energy. Yeah, very good. I think I sure have, yeah, years and years of dealing with this kind of energy, if we'll call it. And I think the word for it is envy. I really think there's a spirit of envy in the world that's very prevalent, and it's not new to human beings. The energy of envy, the force, whatever you want to call it, the 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 quality of envy, I think, is as long as you can, as far back as we can go in history, there's been this spirit of envy, this tear down kind of energy, this tear down. But it's usually people that you never really have people that are doing well in life tearing others down. It's more, I think, in social media, online life, and platforms have given way to easy for people who aren't doing so well or don't know how to deal with their own energy, or they don't know how to properly place whatever they're going through and they're suffering. They project it out onto others, and with the intent of hurting others, or herding like cattle, herding others into submission out of fear. There's th- there's something about people tearing others down that often, if you hear people say, "Oh, he's or she's a narcissist," or "he or she is a bully," or he whatever they're saying, they don't necessarily even know that those people. I know people who have attacked me. They don't really, these people don't know anything about me. They don't know how I live my life. They don't know who I am actually. They have some public face of me and they make up whatever shit they want to make up. Excuse my, it's not French, man. That's straight up English right there. But if you look at those people, really it's projection. What they're not dealing with in themselves, what they're not confronting in themselves, what they're not aware of in themselves, that energy has to go somewhere. So if it's it those people turn on themselves in their quiet moments, but if you look, really, that energy has to go somewhere. They put it out, they find targets, and then they get other people around them who agree, like who are all equally miserable. And it's like then, and they form a kind of conspiracy to then attack and tear down others. And then they feel justified, they feel right about it. But it's actually a conspiracy for mediocrity. Like those people lose. So this is what I'll say. What comes to mind is Kobe Bryant, the basketball player. He said something once that just stuck in my brain forever once I heard it. But he said, "Booze don't block dunks." So, yeah, you're playing basketball and you dunk, and the crowd is booing, right? Booing him, booing his team, the whole crowd, thousands of people booing, but booze don't block dunks.
Mhm.
So, what that means to me is you live your life. So even though there's suffering happening in the world, or the world is troubled, or the world is attacking, you put your attention on what you want to have happen and act for it, organize for it, be for it. And people can boo you, they can target you, they can attempt to tear you down, but you do the thing that you need to do. And as Emerson said, do the thing and you'll have the power, and you will. And let those people, those naysayers, the burners, because we're talking about two types of people. There are builders and there are the burners. There are the leaders and then there are the looters, the spiritual looters. And if you're a builder, and I sense the fact that you're asking this question, the person who sent this question, the very fact that you're asking this question to me points to you being a builder, but you're being stopped, you're being suppressed, you're being out of fear, but you want to take that lid off yourself. That's one thing. And then lastly, and then I want to hand it over to you, David, if you want to build the tallest building, let's say in a city, let's say, I don't know, New York City or San Francisco, you want to build the tallest building, or let's say it differently. You want to have the tallest building in the city. It can be achieved in one of two ways. You can tear down all the other buildings that are taller than yours and bring them down to below your level,
Mm.
stomp on, basically bring people, anything above you down. Or you can build the tallest one. And I think there are two types of people. There are people who tear down and there are people who build up. And I think we can't change people, but we can determine who we will be. What's here for you, David?
I guess the simplest way to make sense of all of this,
Mhm.
for me anyway,
Mhm.
is it and I talk about a lot of science fiction movies because to me, life is like a science fiction movie. So you could pick the scenario. One that comes to mind is the movie I Am Legend. And it's a story about the last man on Earth, at least according to the idea, that didn't get infected by some zombie virus that turned people into vampires. There's a scene in this movie in which it's okay. He goes out in the daytime and he has the run of the city, but when the sun goes down, the vampires come out.
Mm.
And it's really an interesting scene because they're all huddling together in this dark room. His dogs run away. He's looking for his dogs, and he goes into this dark chamber in this apparently abandoned building, and there they're all there. They're breathing heavy and they're huddling together for warmth and energy. And then they detect him and they're after him. See, life is that kind of movie scenario because the minute people start to notice that you're not like them, there's something about them that wants to find out how to get to you. They don't even know what they're doing, first of all.
Mhm.
You know, you
Mhm.
can't and here's the other thing, if the person is turned into a zombie or a vampire, you can't take that personally, because the
Mhm.
minute you start to take it personally, you take on this battle, and it's not a
Mhm.
personal issue. It's a rational thing that you have to do to look at your world and say, I am different than the rest. I want to be different than the rest. I understand that there are risks in being different than the rest.
Mhm.
And so look at it from that point of view. My other favorite movie is The Matrix. And in The Matrix, the story is that this is a computer simulated reality, and anybody that is in the matrix can be occupied by an agent of the matrix at any point in time. So other than people that are outside the matrix. So again, you want to live outside the matrix of crazy people that are out there who want to tear you down. There are
Mhm.
inherent risks in being an individual, and embrace that. Embrace the idea that you're going to be pursued by some of the most bizarre people, and they look very normal on the surface, but deep down inside, they're energy vampires, and they cannot help but want to take what you have because they don't have it anymore. And that's the simple scenario. Detect it and deflect it. Don't live in
Mhm.
fear. Don't worry about whether or not somebody's going to get to you, because if they want to get to you, they'll find a way. But
Mhm.
the one thing I want to say is that you can be like Teflon. You can have a resilience to the insanity by not reacting to it in the wrong way. And if you start to
Mhm.
react to it in the wrong way, and fear is one of those ways where you open a door for some lunatic person who notices that about you, and they start to pick away at it.
Yeah,
And they
very
pick away at
good.
like the fabric of your
Yeah.
sweater. It just
Yeah.
unravels.
Yeah, really good. The question that comes to mind for me would be, so you have a fundamental concern of how people see you, how people perceive you, how and maybe part of that fundamental concern is, as you mentioned, you're avoiding conflict, okay? And but part of avoiding conflict is because if you get in a conflict, you could look like a jerk. You could look like, yeah, it could be look ugly, nasty to get in conflict. And so you're about controlling perceptions and controlling, managing perceptions and how people view you. But that's something. So here's the question, and introducing this as a practice,
Mm.
like a moment to moment practice and an inquiry is, what can I give up? Like moment to moment. So there's something you want to say, there's something you want to do. You start feeling this fear energy enveloping you, overtaking you. Wait, Baron, stop, pause. Okay. Am I going to make fear more important than being true? Am I going to make fear more important than doing what is consistent with just who I am, my intuitive calling, what's calling me, what's pulling me? Am I going to follow my own drumbeat? And if so, am I making fear a priority, or am I making and wanting to be liked by people who don't like you probably anyhow? And these people, if they don't like you, they're probably not liking others, and they're tear down people. So what could you give up? In a moment, you have a choice to let something go, to give up, like giving up a brick in your the inner wall that you've put up to keep others out, that keeps you locked in, one brick at a time, just giving up. No, actually, I'm going to follow this inner drum beat. I'm going to follow the calling of my conscience. I'm going to stay true. I'm going to put truth first, not people first. I think in the Bible it says, fear no man. Fear, to me, that translates also into the fear would be to not follow the calling of my conscience, to not follow the calling of my higher intuition, my higher knowing. That should be if there's going to be fear here in the way I'm living it in any moment, and the fear to confront would be the fear of abandoning myself, selling out on self. And staying true to self is going to take you to scary places. You follow your intuition, and we all know subconsciously or somewhere fundamentally in the ground of our being, we know that if we follow our intuition, it's going to take us to scary places. And that's why we don't follow it. We instead we control, we stay safe, we hide, we be agreeable, like you were saying in the question. But the question is, what can you give up moment to moment and true up to your northern star, to your truth, or not your truth, but true north. And last thing I want to add here is something I've learned too. So again, in this troubled world, you could focus on that. You could focus on tear down culture. You could focus on people that might attack you. And yeah, they likely will if you stick your neck out. It comes with the territory, nothing new. There are people out there that want to squash you. Okay, especially if you're a growing kind of person. But you could act as if the future is bright. You can, in a dark world, you can act as if things are going to improve. You can act as though, and if you have a kind of confidence that's only going to take you upward and to expand your life out. So act as if, and what I act as if is okay, it's fake it till you make it. And it's okay. But I'll give you what I see as a more powerful way is to actually be the change. Just be the change that you want to be it. Just be it. Yeah. Be
You
a
know,
truth teller.
what occurs to me
Yeah. Yeah.
is that you're an athlete. Now, what athlete doesn't practice to go out into whatever competition or whatever thing that you do? In other words, let's say you're a runner,
Mm,
but do runners just sit on the couch and not run? Runners get out and run, and
mm,
they create a stamina. And every athlete goes out and meets the challenge. For example, me, I'm a snowboarder. I take 6 weeks before every season and I start to build my muscle. And I know that's what I have to do because I don't want to get hurt when I'm out there. But the same thing is true. Identity, and especially an authentic identity,
mhm,
is a muscle and it
mhm.
requires building.
Yeah.
And how do you build an authentic identity? One, it's like eating an elephant, one spoonful at a time. You
Mhm,
start with the first thing that comes to you in the next moment, which is here's an opportunity to be true to yourself, to be real, and to actually put yourself out there. And you start with like baby steps. Just start saying what you really feel. You don't have to shout it from the rooftops, and you don't have to be really radical about it. You could just start to say to people. And when you do that, guess what you discover? You discover you're not really alone. Man, I am not afraid to tell people what I believe and where I'm at with a lot of things. And you know what? I feel like it's actually a safeguard against being drawn into the wrong crowd. You will find your tribe. You'll find people that are like you. The minute
mhm,
you start to be a real, you're going to find people that are like you. But
Yeah.
if as long as you're gonna go along with the crowd, as long as you're gonna acquiesce, and you're gonna as long as you're gonna be
Well,
milquetoast, you're gonna
then
make yourself a target.
yeah, and then you attract people at that water seeks its own level.
Yeah.
You'll attract people on that same frequency.
Mhm.
People who are not being authentic,
Yeah.
not being true to themselves, as
Can
Shakespeare
I
said,
tell you what my
To thine
greatest
own
fear
self,
was?
to thine own self be true, and then as the night follows the day,
Yeah.
you always be false to another. But you put who you are out truly, and then you attract
My
people.
greatest
Yeah.
fear, and I recognized it early in my life, my greatest fear was being ordinary. Because I looked at the world and I saw all these ordinary people, and I saw there was an anathema to it. It was like insipid, like they're all doing the same things, thinking the same thoughts, acting the same behaviors. I was like, I don't want to be like them.
Yeah, that's
And
good
I don't know
fear.
what I want to be. Right. It's a
I
healthy
think
fear.
that's a healthy use of
Yeah.
fear. Yeah,
Yeah.
I always had a fear when I was younger that if I don't step up, if I don't rise up, if I don't really become excellent, if I don't really prepare mind, body, being, my spiritual life, my if I'm not preparing daily and excelling and focusing in on what I'm drawn toward that's positive and building something in work, in relationship, in being a parent. And but I always had this fear of I'll end up back in my parents' basement, or I'd end
It's a
up with
rational fear.
a lot of friends that I grew
Yeah.
up with, the surfer crowd,
Yeah.
and we were all like buddies. But at a certain point, I moved from San Francisco in my very early 20s, only to get away. I knew that if I didn't get away from the crowd, because our environments shape us, form us, and hold us. And I knew that there was something more, something greater I needed to experience, some other potential in life, in myself. It wasn't just who I was, it was who I was becoming.
Mhm.
And that had to do with a lot to all as well the environments in which I placed myself. So I left San Francisco partly out of a fear of just remaining the same. It never really growing. Just envisioning, okay, I could see two futures in front of me. One was, okay, if I just keep doing what I'm doing in my early 20s, partying and going out to clubs, just surfing all day, working a bit. But I was like, okay, what does that future look? Where do I end up there? And then the other was like, I don't know what the other future was, but I knew it was something about an unfolding of my potential. I needed a greater challenge. I needed a greater
Mm.
mountain to climb. I needed to face the unknown and and from a deep place of wanting to grow and know who I could be. Again, as Shakespeare said, you know who you are and know not who you could be.
Mhm.
That was a fear that drove me. But I think, thank God for that fear. I think that was a healthy fear as a fire underneath me to not stay static, to not stay in a comfort zone. Because as we all know, the comfort zone, the question is never will we survive if we step out of the comfort zone? The question is, will you survive the comfort zone?
Oh,
And I think the answer is no. It's a slow death in there.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, it's the frog.
death by a thousand cuts.
Well,
Yeah,
it's the frog in hot water, but see, the water doesn't start out hot.
yeah.
The water starts out very comfortable, and then and eventually the frog boils to death, but see, boiling to death is stewing within yourself, not I think the Bible says the sitting water stinketh. You gotta
Mm,
have a flow of life that's coming through, and by the way, whoever the person is that wrote in,
hmm.
they're aware of the challenges and the dangers of going out there among them, whoever they are, those people that are being attacked all around you and the world's going crazy. But at the same time, there's many opportunities present for you to realize things that you wouldn't otherwise realize if you were in a perfect comfort zone. If everything just kept going the way it was,
Hmm.
and there was nothing challenging you to get out of that comfort zone that you're in and get out of that hot water before you boil to death in your own
Yeah,
juices,
yeah.
then
No,
there would be
very
no
good.
incentive for change.
Yeah, very
Right. Yeah.
good. I think that is the greatest point or place, space of torture is being stuck in one's own juices,
Yeah.
the emotional, the relentless thoughting where you just
Yeah.
lost in your head, and the grievance and the anguish and the despair that and just something is wrong with me, something is wrong with my life, or something is wrong in life that's born out of self consumption, what would it be, like self obsession, self consumption isn't the word I'm looking for, but self focus.
Mhm.
We all need an outer, that's the power of purpose. To have a purpose in the world, serving, being of service to others. You grow, you're on your own growth trajectory, a path of discovering yourself for yourself and putting yourself out in with others, a contribution to others. As Gandhi said, someone asked Gandhi, if you want to be with God so badly, why don't you go live in a Himalayan cave? And he responded with, if I thought God was in a Himalayan cave, I'd go there immediately. He said, but my God is found out with people, with
Mm.
the masses, with
Yeah.
people, and being with people.
Yeah.
That's where I find my truth and my God.
I love
It,
that.
yeah,
I wanted to make one point here, and that
yeah,
is I've actually been excavating around this idea. I thought, how many things do I actually do in a day? These are circular things that I do over and over again. I figured that there's about 2 dozen actual things that I actually do every day. You eat, you sleep, shower, brush your teeth, you go to work, you do the same things. You do the same things every day. Now, during the course of those 2 dozen things that you're doing every day, how many thoughts might you have? Now, the question is, are you self-limiting your thoughts? Or is your mind like a screen door on a submarine and thoughts are just flooding in all the time? And it's funny because they have commercials advertising certain kinds of medications for adult ADD. So you could either be self-limiting or you could have this giant screen door on your brain and everything's flooding in. And I'm thinking to myself, if people actually made a list of things that they can identify that they do every day, and I don't even think you can find 2 dozen things that you do every day. But then if you just take a blank sheet of paper and just ask yourself, how many things am I not doing every day? That list begins to grow and it grows, and you begin to realize that the potential that you have to do literally just about anything you want to do, it's there, but you're stuck in that rut. You're stuck in that circular way of living,
yeah, on the
and you've got
treadmill.
all these fighting all these thoughts off all the time. And so again,
I
you know,
see. So wait, let me clarify. So
yeah.
the when you look at the things you're not doing, the actions, the activities you're
Mhm.
not doing
Mhm.
habitually, that if you were to do those things, they would elevate you.
Of course.
You would grow.
You would break
You know
out
they
of the
would take you to
shell.
good places.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you look at what you are doing and all the things you're doing that are actually at some level, it's the inner saboteur is driving that
I
car.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On this question, another thing that comes to mind about people. So I think, I don't know how it was for you, David, or for people listening, but I know kids could be mean, cruel.
Oh, yeah.
And I was the brunt of when I was starting really young. I want to say I remember kindergarten, first grade, starting there, just being teased relentlessly. And
Yeah.
they're the cool kids in their little groups. And then there were like kids like me that were either completely alone or I would find, it was really interesting. I remember through grade school, typically like during recess, during free time, like at school, at lunch times, it was like torture. And I would find what I ended up gravitating toward and around were the special ed kids and kids that were really had a handy, like they're mentally retarded, they had a handicap, they had something that, but I found a camaraderie with those kids,
Hmm.
and we were all being teased and tortured in a
Yeah.
sense,
Get
and
that.
sometimes bullied straight up.
Yeah.
And I remember it was maybe third or fourth grade, there suddenly it was announced that our school was going to be shut down for the next year or 2 years to be renovated.
Mm.
And so that we were and that school was like 2 blocks from my house. So we could walk every morning
Mm.
and afternoon. But then we were to start being bused. So on a bus, being bused all, I lived in the Richmond Pacific Heights part of San Francisco. We're bused all the way over to the Sunset District, way out by the beach and the avenues. And it was like a 45-minute bus ride. And,
Jeez.
and what happened though, it became pure torture for me.
Yeah.
Those bus rides every morning, kids would literally, the bus full of kids would sing songs about me. They would put gum on my hair, in
Gee.
my hair. They sometimes I'd get bullied, physically beat up, scratched. Like it was bad. I put up with it every day. And it was very relentless. But let me skip forward because a little bit in time. So this went on for years. But what happened is when I got just old enough, sixth, seventh grade, I was really pretty tortured all the way through sixth grade as far as I didn't fit in. I was like one of the kids that just was always being teased, tormented, bullied like that. And I just wanted to get along. I just wanted to have friends. Here and there, I'd make a friend. And usually it was like a weird kid or something. And we would just chum around. But for the most part, for most of the crowd, I was the odd kid out, one of the odd kids out. But fast forward to maybe seventh grade, however you are there, you're on 14, 13-ish or something. And I remember it was the first time. So as now I'm in a new school, a junior high school, seventh grade class starts, new group of kids, new school. And it was the first time where I realized, whoa, and I was a young teenager, right? But I realized, oh, if I act in certain ways, I can get these kids and the cooler kids to like me.
Mhm.
If I mutate, if I put on certain masks, wear certain clothes, talk in certain ways, do what they do,
Yeah.
then I could fit in. And I started to get some approval. I started to get to hang out with the cooler kids. But then what the cooler kids were doing and what it took for me to fit in was, oh, we all started they're
Yeah.
smoking pot,
Yep.
drinking alcohol all the time, taking whatever kind of pills, whether it's Quaaludes or Valium or whatever, smoking hash or taking whatever substances, but it was a part of the cool crowd. It was a
Mhm.
way you fit in. But what happened with that is at first I started doing those things, smoking pot, drinking all that to fit in. But then it became I was selling out of myself. I didn't get to be just who I was and just
Mm.
evolve and grow and expand naturally. And so that's where those very substances became a way out. It was a way of not having to be myself in order to be a self that others would accept. And the only way to really, that caused so much anguish in me that the only way to put out that pain or numb and anesthetize that pain was more pot, more alcohol, more pills, more any kind of behavior that would let me fit in, but also not, I wouldn't have to deal with being who I actually was and being rejected for that. And I say that because I think it's fitting to this question, the question at hand. What are you selling out? You're selling out yourself. And what are you selling out on that's important to you, that you really value in life? Life is short. This life's very short. It seems like we have a lot of time. We don't. And but when you sell out on yourself, look at the behaviors you're doing to numb that out, because that what it costs you not being yourself, being an inauthentic, fraudulent version of yourself, you're having somewhere that's causing you so much pain and suffering. You're fine. You have, I promise you, if you really look at your life and you really be like honest with yourself, you'll start seeing that some of your negative behaviors of self betrayal that are undermining you, whether it's drinking or porn or just excessive shopping or hanging out with people that are always in drama or you're always in drama, as a way of not dealing with the truth of how you've been living, the truth about who you've become, and the truth of the way down deep, the truth that again, who you are when you get present to who you are, but also the truth of what you're avoiding of who you could be.
Mhm. I guess I can relate very much with what you said, but I will just make my story very simple. I started surfing when I was 11 years old, and it just became kind of everything to me as a kid because it was the one thing I wanted to figure out how to do right. So I would watch other surfers and I would try to model myself after the best of the surfers. And then years went by, and by the time I was in my early teens, I was pretty good at surfing. And then they would have surf contests. And I would show up and watch the surf contest, and guess what? The guys that performed, we're talking about fitting in, the guys that did what they knew the judges expected of them were the ones that always won the contest.
Mhm.
And I thought that was not right because there were better surfers than the guys that were winning the contest. But the better surfers didn't really care about the contests. They were in it for the love of the sport.
Yeah.
And so nobody really noticed me that much. Yeah, I was picked on when I was a kid. I was, look at me. I mean, I'm pickable. But you know, curly hair,
A
eyes are
walking
close
voodoo
together,
doll.
big
Yeah.
nose, whatever. But nobody ever noticed me until ninth grade when I finally got sick of it because in high school, the jocks were the ones that got all the attention. The jocks were the cheerleaders were after the jocks were the school heroes, the football players, the basketball players. So one day I decided that I was going to challenge the status quo. This is ninth grade. And I wrote an article for the school newspaper called Gaudy Metal and Ego Trips. And basically I said what I just told you. I didn't believe that the best people always won the contests. So I'm
Mhm.
sitting on the lawn one day and apple cores and sandwiches and stuff are flying over my head after the kids read that. They were so challenged by this idea that the gaudy medals were driving all of the recognition for the guys that were just simply doing what everybody wanted them to do, all the judges. And it was the same thing for, in basketball and in sports. You had these darlings of the game, whoever they were. And of course, they were the better looking guys and they were more athletically inclined. But my story was about surfing. And I made a point that these guys that were getting the medals, they had a false belief about themselves because they were really much better surfers. And so this was very challenging. And this is when I began to realize the truth has power. I
Mhm.
realized that. And I realized that if you're going to actually be a person who speaks any truth at all, that there are going to be people throwing apples at you. And so you have to accept whether or not you want to be that person who is being the target of apple throwers. And if you can
Apples don't sound that bad.
Yeah, but
Catch an
if you
apple
can
and take a bite
accept
out of
that
it.
part of it,
Yeah, yeah, I
you
like
can
that.
go
View it
on
as
to
an
be
apple
somebody
and
that really
start
tells
catching
some
them.
amazing truths and changes the world and shakes things up.
Mm, yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to me, the truth is we talk about you hear a lot of talk of the light, right? Live by the light.
Mhm.
And to me, the light is found in the truth.
That's it.
The truth is where there's light. And if you're not living and having a looking for the truth, you are living in the absence of light, darkness.
Funny thing is, though,
Lie.
nobody ever noticed me until I spoke up. See, I could have been a guy that stayed in the shadows.
Ah, very good. I
Nobody
love that.
noticed me until I
Yeah, I
said, and then when
love
I
that.
stood up,
Yeah,
then people started wanting to attack what I was saying, and I had
yeah,
to make a decision about whether or not I wanted to stand by what I was saying.
yeah. What's here is for me is the difference between being a leader
Mhm.
and just being sheep.
Yeah.
Because a leader, you're going to speak up. You're going to raise your hand. You're
Yeah.
going to put your voice out. You're going to stand for what you know to be true, and you're going to be at issue with the status quo.
You
And
are.
so the attention is on you.
Yeah.
And that is its own kind of fire. But consider that shutting down, shutting up, squashing yourself out of fear to be squashed externally, that's its own kind of hellfire.
Yeah.
Again, it's the comfort zone that's a slow death
And
by
never
a thousand
forget
cuts. Yeah.
that they will make an example out of every breakaway person, out of every
Oh,
real
yeah.
constructive
Yeah.
rebel. They'll make an example out of
Like
somebody.
they did
So
with
you say,
Jesus.
I
Yeah.
don't, yeah, exactly.
They did with
I don't want that to happen to
Socrates,
me.
poison him.
Yeah.
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 the Martin Luther Kings. Yeah,
They're gonna
it's
make an
like
example.
they will make an example of you. And look, what's the alternative? Hide, shut down,
Yeah.
put up walls that keep others out, but keep you locked in and slowly withering away in there. It's, yeah. So here, I want to just leave it on this note as a
Yeah.
question to everybody is not being yourself, right? And selling out for the approval of the crowd that you'll never get anyway. You can't do enough backflips or
Mm-mm.
like a circus seal for anchovies trying to get a little like, trying to
Mhm.
get a little approval. You can never win that. But here's the question: what is it costing you to be inauthentic, to not be true, to not be yourself? What is it costing you? Is it costing
Mm.
you joy? Is it costing you love? Is it costing you truth, to being like the discovery of who you could be in life? What is it costing you?
Yeah.
And that's a big one. And then also the flip side of that, and this is a side that people don't rarely ever look at, is what are you getting from
Mm.
being this way? What are you getting from living this way,
Mm.
inauthentic?
Mhm.
What do you get something from it? Consider that. You get some kind of payoff, some kind of goodie where, yeah, maybe it's okay, I get to be safe. Okay, I get to fit in. I get to be liked by all these people that undercover are judging you anyway. But you get something from it. Maybe you're getting that you don't have to be responsible in your life. You can avoid conflict. But you're getting something from it, and maybe you even get to just be right. You get to be right that everybody else is so wrong and everybody else is so cruel, and get to be right that you're the victim, or you get to be that the world is just and people are just dangerous. Yeah, there's danger, but do you are you taking it, getting a payoff from that, of things being the way they are? And I would suggest, yes, absolutely, you're getting something from it. Because how do I know? Because if you weren't getting something from it, you would have probably given this up a long time ago. Yeah,
Hmm.
you'd get right to what it's been costing you. You get right to joy and to be in your full vitality and your full self expression out in the world and living true. So, anyhow, let's wrap up here. Always good to be with you, David. Always good. You all, please share the show. Share the show is a great way to pay this forward and supports us in growing this show. Be y'all. Stay blessed and stay safe. Until next time, God bless.
God bless.